So in this video tutorial, we are going to discuss about 5 questions from chromatography that was asked in previous year. Okay, so first some video will be regarding theoretical question, and then we will move to the analytical question solving. Okay, so let's start. So today's first question is, sorry, it was the last one. So today's first question is from the first type of chromatography that we have discussed in our detailed lecture video, that is, what is paper chromatography, and I give an example of paper chromatography. So paper chromatography is a technique that involves placing a small drop or line of sample solution onto a strip of chromatographic paper. The paper is then placed in a jar containing slime layer of solvent and sealed. Okay, now as the solvent rise through the to the paper, it meets the sample mixture, and along with the solvent the sample mixture also start to move up the paper and the separation occurs. That is the basic concept of paper chromatography. So here the retardation factor is important. We have to mention the formula of retardation factor whenever we are giving the this definition of paper chromatography. So retardation factor's formula is distance traveled by the substance divided by distance traveled by the solvent form. So example of paper chromatography is the thin layer chromatography. Okay, so paper chromatography is a technique that involves placing a small dot or line of sample solution onto a strip of chromatographic paper. That the paper is then placed in a small jar containing a shallow layer of solvent and sealed. As the solvent rises through the paper, it meets the sample mixture and which start to travel up the paper with the solvent. That is how the separation is going on. Remember one thing, that in case of paper chromatography, the stationary phase is what? The stationary phase is the chromatographic strip, right? That is usually a paper in that case, and mobile phase is as well as a liquid or liquid here, in which our samples to be separated is dissolved, right? And another important thing that you need to remember, that in case of paper chromatography we are analyzing a very small quantity of solution, right? Now next question is, what is stationary phase and what is mobile phase? Remember, the mobile phase is defined as the liquid or gas that flows through the chromatographic system, moving the materials to be separated at different rate over the stationary phase, right? So mobile phase is the liquid or gas in which our substance to be separated is dissolved, and this mobile phase simply passed through the stationary phase along with our materials to be separated to separate them, right? And stationary phase is also important, is the phase over which the mobile phase passes in the technique of chromatography. So mobile phase, remember one thing, that our mixture to be separated will be in mobile phase, and stationary phase involved in separation of the sample from the mixture. Now the third question is, what is the principle of TLC, right? So it is a kind of planar chromatography where the components of a mixture are separated by differential migration through a planar bed of stationary phase. The mobile phase flowing by virtue of capillary action. The solute are detected in situ on the surface of the layer plate by visualizing reagent after the chromatography has been completed. So it is a kind of planar chromatography, a modified version of paper chromatography where thin layer of adsorbent is used instead of paper. That is the idea, where the components of a mixture are separated by differential migration through a planar bed of stationary phase. The mobile phase flowing by virtue of capillary force. The solute are detected in situ on the thin layer of plate by visualizing reagent after the chromatography has been completed. Now it is more simpler explanation of thin layer chromatography that is widely employed laboratory technique and is similar to paper chromatography. Here the stationary phase is thin layer of adsorbent like silica, alumina or cellulose. Compared to paper, it has the advantage of faster run, better separation and the choice of different adsorbent, because remember, in case of paper chromatography the only and one and only choice is paper, but here we have silica, alumina or cellulose, and the solvent that we use, you can also mention while explaining the principle of the TLC, that is acetic acid, butanol and H2O, 8 is to 2 is to 1. Now the fourth question is, what are the disadvantage of the column chromatography? The main disadvantage is it takes time and it takes some technical skill. Okay, and column chromatography is also less foolproof than paper chromatography, and we have to apply constant attention while the experiment is being performed. And another important is, air bubble can be entrapped between the stationary phase and the mobile phase during as a result of dry packing, due to which crack appeared in the adsorbent layer. The fifth important question is, what is ion exchange chromatography? Ion exchange chromatography, here we are using the sign and the differences in sign and magnitude of charges, okay, of protein at given pH. That means, remember one thing, that ion exchange chromatography can separate molecules who are different in charge. So here column matrix is a synthetic polymer resins containing bound charge group. Those with bound anionic group are called cationic exchanger, and those with bound cationic group are called anionic exchanger. I have discussed with you a trick. So to remember, A is the first letter in alphabet, so it will have plus, and C is the second. C is after A, so it will take minus. That means anion exchanger will have positively charged resin, and as it is, anion exchanger has cationic charged resin, and cationic exchanger have anionic charged resin. That is the trick to remember. So that is for the 5 questions that we have discussed today. I will again come back with another 5 questions later on. Thank you.